Hey, it's Danny, the real estate guy. Welcome to Truth Tuesday, where we are providing transparency to the real estate consumer. Today's topic is on the importance of working with an agent who is active on the board within your city or who specializes in the city that you plan on listing or buying a home in. So we'll go over some topics here that you as a consumer may not understand and can get a little bit more clarity on today. Yes, if an agent is licensed in Ontario, technically they have the ability and are legally licensed to work anywhere in Ontario. But just because we're allowed to do that doesn't mean that it is actually a benefit to you as a purchaser or a seller. And I'll go through some reasons here. So one thing to gain clarity is that individually each, and as a consumer you might not know this, but individually each city has their own broker MLS system. The consumer has the Realtor.ca system where they can go on to gain specific information, but each city has their own broker MLS system. Now there's some cities that have amalgamated together and some of the systems are a little bit larger now, so access is a little bit easier. But just to understand that certain cities will, and agents in certain cities will not have access to your board unless they are gaining access to multiple boards, which can be complicated to do. Not all allow that. So that's just one point of clarity to make this a little bit more understandable and transparent to you as the consumer. So one of the most important reasons that I will say here why you should be working with an agent who is either active on the board in your area or who has the expertise in that area that you plan on buying or selling. Number one, knowledge of area. There's specific things that can happen in particular neighborhoods that can impact that neighborhood, like future developments that could be happening in close proximity. Some major things where major zoning changes can come in, where they're going to allow for high-story apartment rises, which has happened a lot in the city of Waterloo, and there's been a lot of pushback from residents and fighting of that zoning. And as an agent coming from out of town, let's say you're coming from Toronto, you're coming from Stratford, or and you're not really familiar with the area, you won't know about these possible future zoning changes that are coming, and also negative stigmas that impact the area, the specific area. And there's a number of them in Kitchener, Waterloo, and GTA and other areas that you may not know about, and that an agent, if they're not from that area, they very likely won't know either. And also is that knowing specific, like here in Kitchener, there's an area called Alpine, and specifically that neighborhood, it's known for having a lot of aluminum wiring because of the year of the homes that were built there, and other areas in and around Kitchener, Waterloo. And it's not so much a stigmatism towards that neighborhood, that they're great neighborhoods, but as agents, we kind of have our antennas up to say, okay, we have to look specifically if there's aluminum wiring in this home. Does it need an ESA, electrical safety authority, a test to be done, or do we want to make our potential purchasers knowledgeable about what could possibly be in that home? And if they're going into that purchase, it's good for them to know that. And an out-of-town agent probably won't know that. They won't even know anything about Alpine Village. So these are just some of the small things. And certain neighborhoods are really well known for having Kitech plumbing, which is a really, it's a stigmatized, and it's not a very good plumbing system that needs to be completely replaced, and it can cost you thousands of dollars. So, these are things that could end up costing you as a purchaser thousands of dollars just by dealing with someone who is not knowledgeable about your specific area. Which I think as a consumer, it's really good for you to know that. And also, if you're not, the number two reason would be if you're not on the specific board and you don't have access to that system, you're going to have a very hard time doing a complete market analysis, an in-depth market analysis. And even if you do, because you could be living in Milton and working specifically in Milton, and you have access to the Kitchener-Waterloo board, or vice versa, because we're on the same MLS system. But if you don't work actively there, how do you really know what's happening actively in that area unless you work in both areas, which some agents can? But if you're not there actively listing and helping buyers buy property, then you don't really have the pulse. You don't have your pulse on the market to know exactly what's happening in this fast changing market where things are changing rapidly, especially the last year, up and down. You really don't know where things are going. If you're not, if you don't have your pulse on the market and knowing exactly what's happening from day to day, if you're not out showing properties to buyers and helping sellers list property, then you really don't know what's going on. I don't care how, if you're on the same board or not, it's very difficult for you to know any of that. So, and I can't tell you how often I've listed a property and, we get buyers that are coming from out of town, which is great, but they're coming from out of town agents, which is fine. But the agent will call me and say, hey, what do you think this home is worth before, they're doing an offer? And I'm working for the seller. I'll tell them it's worth $5 million. I mean, truly, it's not my job to educate you. And you as the buyer's agent, if you're having to go to the listing agent to ask how much the property is worth, you're not working very well for your client. And we hear this as agents all the time. It's a really big complaint. So, and also on the other aspect, when you're listing a property, and you're working with an agent that's coming from out of town, that doesn't have experience in the area, that has maybe never sold a home in the area. First of all, are they not in the system? How are they going to do an in-depth market analysis if they're not in the system? But even if they're on the system and they're able to gain access, if they're not out actively showing property and helping clients sell property, they don't know exactly what's happening with each specific type of property. Certain townhouses, semis, bungalows, 2 stories, certain different style of properties are way more, like semis right now are very, very active, and we know that they're going to get tons of offers. Bungalows typically are very, very active in the Kitchener-Waterloo region right now. So, there's certain properties that might not do as well as others, and others that might do really well. And we need to know this when we're advising our sellers and looking to find a specific listing price to get the best price possible for that home seller. So I would say, so these are really just 3 of the most important things, but there are a ton others. But I would say as a home buyer or seller, talk before you hire your agent. Talk to them. Are you on that specific board? If they are, great. Do you have experience there? Do you live there, or have you lived there? Do you work on multiple boards and have multiple knowledge of both boards? If you do, great. But make sure that they do, at the very least, that they have access to the system. They have to have that. You can't work with an agent who doesn't have access to that broker system within that city. If they do have access, and just make sure that they have the experience within that neighborhood so they can help guide you best through your buying or selling process. Well, I appreciate you coming today. It was a little bit longer of a video, but hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please drop them below, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.